So for question 2, we are given two graphs, one of f, one of f's derivative f prime. So the first part of this question, they are asking us to first of all find the average rate of change. Then they want to know when does the average rate of change equal the instantaneous rate of change. So we have two things that we need to know to do this problem. So first of all, the average rate of change, it's actually almost the same idea as finding the slope of a line. So we're going to find the y value at 4, subtract from that the y value at -1. Then we do 4 minus -1. Make sure that you have that formula written somewhere. You most likely will be asked that on the AP test. So in order to evaluate this, we're just going to find f of 4. We know that when x equals 4, y is going to be 1. We know that when x equals -1, y is going to be equal to -2. 4 minus -1 is going to be 5. We get 3/5 for our average rate of change. That's the first part of the problem. And if you get that, you actually get a point. The next thing that you need to know is that the instantaneous rate of change of f, that's the second thing they're asking you for. That actually is another way to say the derivative, f prime. So what they're wanting to know is, when does f prime equal 3/5? Actually, they're not even asking you when it does. They just want to know how many times are they equal. So if we look at this graph of f prime, 3/5 is, I approximated it. Note that that's not perfect, but it's pretty close. You can see that there are going to be two x values where you're going to hit approximately 3/5. You're going to hit it right here, and you're going to hit it right about there. So actually the answer for this one is going to be 2. So the second part of this question, we are finding the equation of the tangent line at x equals 1. So to find an equation of the tangent line, you need two things. You need a point and you need a slope. So let's start with the point. When x is equal to 1, you're going to find that f of x, this point is going to be 1, 2. So the next part is finding the slope, and slope of the tangent line is going to be the derivative at that value 1. F prime of 1, don't try to actually evaluate the slope of the line based on the f graph. Look at the f prime graph. They gave that to you to make it easier on you. So this value here is 1, -2. So our slope of the tangent line is -2. From there, my main recommendation for any slope of the tangent line is write it in point slope form. If you don't remember point slope form, you can probably just look back in your book, look back from your algebra notes, just look online. This is my answer. Actually, I'm done. If you went further, by the way, and you did it in slope-intercept form, that's fine. I believe it's y equals -2x plus 4. Just extra work, but so if you got the point slope, that's sufficient to get the point for this problem. So in my opinion, part C is the hardest one on this problem. You are finding these two limits or giving a reason why it doesn't exist. So I'm going to tell you what people are going to do and why it's wrong. So generally, people are going to say, okay, I'm going to plug in f of 2, plug in 2, and oh no, I get 0/0. I can't do anything. I'm done. Does not exist. This unfortunately is not the right way to do this problem. Now, if you plug in 2 for this one, you will notice that this is an indeterminate form. By the way, on the AP exam, I actually just found this out. If you, they only changed this a few years ago. If you write 0/0, they might take off a point. So if you get something like this, you're welcome to cross it out. Actually, anything that you write on the AP test, you can cross it out and they won't grade it. So this is an indeterminate form. If you have an indeterminate form, the easiest way to figure out what the actual answer is to use L'Hopital's rule. So L'Hopital's rule, if you remember, involves taking the derivative of the numerator and taking the derivative of the denominator. So derivative of the numerator, f of x, derivative of that is going to be f prime. So here's another thing that people get a little confused on. F of 2, actually, if you look at that on the graph, that's equal to 1. That's going to be a constant. So we're going to write that as 0. Derivative of x is 1. Derivative of 2, again, is a constant. That's also 0. So we're going to do the limit as x approaches 2 of f prime of x. In order to evaluate that, you are going to substitute in 2. That is not in a determinant form, so you can do that. You'll find that the answer for that is actually 1. All right, same thing happens for the limit as x approaches 3. This is going to, again, be indeterminate. So we are, again, going to use L'Hopital's rule. When you use L'Hopital's rule, we still get the same thing as we got before. We get f prime of x. So then you can try to evaluate f prime of 3. If you look at what happens at f prime of 3, we have what's called a jump discontinuity. So actually at that point, the derivative f prime of 3 does not exist. So the answer to this one is does not exist. They do ask you to give a reason why it does not exist. There's a few things that you can say. I'll write down just 2 of them. So the first way that you can explain this is you can mention that the limit as x approaches 3 from the right, that's what that little plus sign is, of f prime is not equal to the limit as x approaches 3 from the left. You can also say that the function is not differentiable at x equals 3. That means that the derivative doesn't exist. You actually can say that the derivative does not exist at x equals 3. That's another fine answer. But either way, just give some sort of explanation that explains why it doesn't exist. Each of these parts of the problem, by the way, is worth 1 point. So this problem is a pretty standard AP free response problem. There's a really good chance you'll get something like this. I'm hoping that you recognize that this type of thing has come up a few times. So we have a function g of x equal to e to the x times f of x, and we're trying to find g prime of 0. So first thing you need to do is find g prime of x. Note that g is a product, so we again are going to use the product rule. So we end up getting g prime equals e to the x times f prime plus e to the x times f. Keep in mind, remember that the derivative of e to the x is e to the x. From there, you're just going to plug in 0. And as with the previous 2 problems, you can find f prime and f of 0 by using this graph. We know that when x equals 0 on the f graph, we end up getting 3. When x equals 0 on the f prime graph, we end up getting 1. And if you substitute all of that in, you should get that your answer is equal to 4. So this problem is worth 2 points. You get the first point by doing the product rule to find the derivative of g. You get the second point by finding the answer.